welcome to Hold Up, a movie podcast. Last time we visited a few house parties, some hip and hoppin', some shitty. This week we visit houses of another kind, those that hold parties of a few that make the decisions for the many. We talk wars both civil and cold, and the battle of trying to get a date while being the president.
Yeah, that's way putting it.
I guess. Because tonight's theme is politics. I am your host, Davan Skelhorn, and with me, as always, my co-host, Chris Worldmind Murphy.
Thank you.
And with us again, our first and thus far only guest, though not for long. There's many more guests on the way. Captain Dave Mater.
Hello and good evening. Salutations. Let's talk some politics.
Let's do it.
I'd just like to say that off the hop, I'm the only one that actually brought a political movie to the table.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. Mine definitely is.
Actually, Davin's movie, I'm coming in and saying is not that political. It's
No, his is a comedy of bad communication.
But my
And
movie's
yours-
just as political as yours. Like I don't
No way! Not even in a
How-
heartbeat, sir. What
How so?
politics happened in that movie? What
There's-
politics?
I can go
We're
on
gonna
and
get
on
into
if you'd
it.
like me to. I got lots of answers. You go, oh no, what are you talking about? But it doesn't make you right. So there's climate change, there's gun control, there's domestic policy, there's international response to policies with Libya and Israel. There's tons of politics going on in that movie.
I don't think so. There's a lot of
If you just
softball, side story politics that's all just ham-fisted with bad romance.
If you're just
Well,
going la la la, I don't like a romance story, then you're not going to be paying attention, guys. Sorry.
I went through I looked for the politics, and it's all just backroom talking. There was no real political action, as opposed to
Right,
Lincoln,
we're
which
getting
has
ahead of
There's
political
ourselves
tons of
here,
political
fellas.
action. They're literally
Wait
on
a
the
minute,
phone with
hold on.
congressmen.
Speaker of the House. I thought Murphy was going to be the Speaker of the House, but apparently it's me. But that's fitting. Where's my gavel?
Order.
There we go. Oh my God! I set off Charlie. Charlie, settle down.
Charlie.
That's my skeleton.
Oh. In your closet?
The skeleton in the closet, but he just sits on my chair. Yes, I've seen a skeleton before. Shut up. Anyway, so the first movie we're going to cover tonight over here in Theater 1. Let's get started because we're getting already ahead of us.
We're getting into it.
So,
So we're
first,
ahead of
in
it.
Theater 1, we have Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, from 1964, starring Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, Sterling Hayden, and introducing James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Directed by Stanley Kubrick. Now, before I get started on the synopsis here, I just gotta say, I had never seen this movie before, and it's one of my favorite movies. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. As far as comedies go, it's one of my top 5 comedies ever. And maybe even top 5 movies ever. It's fantastic.
Whoa! That's high
every
praise.
scene.
Wow.
It could have been a comic book. Like every scene is memorable. Every line is memorable. All the characters are super unique. In the acting is a unique style. Like everyone's, and there's a reason for that. Like everyone seems to be playing it straight. Just at some point they get to something where they say something absurd, but they still do it completely straight. Like in a comedy, everyone, you can tell they're just acting for comedy. Usually, that's not the case here. Like if you weren't paying attention to all the things you were saying, it was just really quiet in a bar. You'd think you were watching a serious movie until the buddy rides the bomb like a cowboy. But anyway. Any opening thoughts from you guys before I get into the synopsis here?
I too haven't seen this movie before. It was always sort of on the list. A lot of Kubrick films are on my list, and this was one of them. And I went into it, and I had a pretty good time. I thought the plane scene was hilarious and how bad it was, and just not the interior stuff. I love the interior stuff. It's the exterior plane stuff.
It's just like
And
somebody's holding a toy or something. It's like
yeah, it's basically his point of fixture for the camera was the plane, as opposed to like where you film it, your point of fixture is the sky, and you film things moving through the plane, and you get this like movement with flying. Uh, this was very like he didn't quite know what he was going for, but you could tell what he was trying to go for, and it was those moments that took me out of the film. So that was my biggest con, but everything else I thought was pretty funny and I enjoyed. So like, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it was like I'd say it was a mixed bag. Like I will say that some of the comedy was really good and still held up. Some of it I think is just bizarre and weird and not poignant. And the other thing with this movie was that, like I kind of mentioned it earlier, it's not really all that political. It's about the Cold War, kind of.
It's about the Cold War.
But
it's about the the war room politics of that era, basically.
Yeah, it's like I thought it was interesting,
and the
like
hazards that can come from that. Like
yeah, like it was interesting, like the conversation between the president and like the Russian premier or whatever is really funny.
I love that.
Yeah, like Dimitri.
Do you have a trailer, Murphy?
Yeah.
Do we have a trailer?
We do have a trailer. We're just getting
fire
so
up our
into it.
Theater 1 trailer. Yeah, and then we'll get into it.
Attack!
Russia.
The weirdest edited trailer ever.
I know.
Very strange.
This is even weird for the era.
What?
Well, it's Kubrick, man. He tries to do things in a strange way. It's an artsy fella.
The Coca-Cola machine.
See, all these images are just so memorable.
The Doomsday Machine.
Blast off!
I love that. There's Turgis. I love Turgis.
Where's my shorts?
Where's the bathroom?
Buck, should I get it?
On the hotline.
Dr. Strangelove.
Or how I learned to stop worrying and
Love the bomb. A moving picture.
It doesn't tell you anything about the movie, but it's
At
a
all.
fantastic trailer.
It doesn't.
It's still fantastic.
What's
It's
the
very
whole, like-
interesting and stylish?
Love the bomb at the end. What the hell is that?
It's like some weird like marketing choice. Like it's not in the movie at any point. It's just like this weird like lampoonish style marketing choice that they decided to clearly do or something, and they just went full tilt on it. Kubrick was clearly having a ball making this movie.
For sure. Okay, and like I'd say I got two big criticisms with this movie. Things I don't personally like. One, this Dr. Strangelove, the title character, is by far the worst character in the movie.
What?
Yeah, it's true.
What?
Yeah, he's bizarre. It's not funny at all. I didn't laugh any
Oh my
time this
god,
guy
I
was
find
on
him
screen.
hilarious.
Why?
Because everything he said was hilarious, and he has alien hand syndrome,
Why?
and he was a former Nazi, and it keeps slipping out accidentally because he's
Well,
based on Werner von Braun.
But that's not funny.
And it's very funny
Why? Why is that funny, Davan?
because it's funny, man. It's like it's a weird character. It's not just like the standard character. He's a very strange character.
I talk kind of
He
funny.
talks funny. His
Hello,
delivery
Mr.
is
President. We must build a
How he
lab.
keep-
Like,
Well, look. All right, what's your other criticism?
my other criticism with the movie is that it's condescending. It's incredible. Like, it's mostly coming from this point of view that everybody out there is stupid, especially the people in government and the military, and it's just like really hitting you over the head with that message. Like, we are so smart, you are so dumb, and it's just like I don't think this is a good way to get that. Like, if you're against like the Cold War, if you're against like nuclear deterrence and all these things, this is not the way I think you persuasively convince a public to de-escalate. It's more just about like
job.
it's just feels like very condescending, rude, a self-inflated sense of importance.
It's a satire.
Yeah, it's very satirical. Maybe too far for my taste.
It's based on a book that was not satirical, and they were gonna do like he was thinking about doing that movie, just like doing it straight, and then he decided it would be better and more effective as a satire.
Yeah, but those two things aside,
it can show the extremes. Then then it can
I agree with you.
Crazy extreme it could get.
Yeah, I agree with you that there are a lot of memorable moments in the movie. I think there are some fun bits in the movie. I think some of the comedy, some of the bits with like the telephone gags, I think are a little overdone. Like this movie seems to be mostly about like how funny it is when you're on the phone with somebody and then you can't hear the other side, and when it starts with the secretary, and then later on with like when you can only hear the president talking to the premier, right? And it's just like and there's also
when he's talking to Dimitri is hilarious though. That is hilarious.
It is hilarious, yeah. But it's almost like I feel like that the phone gag is a little bit overdone in the movie, but that's a minor thing.
All right, I'm just going to do a quick synopsis. It won't take me long, then we can get into it, because there's lots to say about this movie. So basically it's about Brigadier General Jack Ripper, who loses his mind and just goes crazy, and he thinks that the Russian or the communists are after our, precious bodily fluids. And
yeah,
he got that idea based on a misinterpretation of being tired after sex. It gets crazy.
Mandrake, I suppose it never occurred to you that while we're chatting here so enjoyably, a decision is being made by the President and the Joint Chiefs in the war room at the Pentagon. And when they realize there was no possibility of recalling the wing,
I got to give it to Peter Sellers.
There will be only one course of action.
I'll give him half. This character was great. This British character he plays.
So they were all great.
Mandrake,
he still needed 2, right?
You recall
no, he did
Clemenceau
3.
once said about
Who's
war.
the third?
The president.
No, I didn't think I knew.
He's the president?
Yeah.
Yes, he's the president and Dr. Strange.
He said war was too important to be left to the general.
Oh, okay, his president's character is great.
When he said that,
I didn't even realize that was
years
him.
ago,
I know, right?
he might have been right.
That's how good.
I didn't figure that out until I started looking at the credits. I was like, wait a minute.
War is too important to be left to
And
politicians.
the Doctor Strangelove character
They have neither
is
the
different
time,
enough that
the training,
props, but I don't think it's funny.
or the inclination for strategic thought.
It was a funny line too.
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination.
This is one of my favorite monologues.
Communist subversion.
This is hilarious.
And the international communist conspiracy.
It's not that funny.
To sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Well, that part's funny.
Like that's what it leads to.
Serious deadpan monologue and intimidating and
Foreign
everything. And it ends
substances
with precious
introduced
bodily fluids.
into our precious bodily fluids. Without the
Like he
knowledge
probably
of the
took that whole
individual,
serious monologue out of the book Red
certainly
Alert
without any
and just
choice.
added the words precious bodily fluids to the
That's
end.
the way a hardcore
That's
commie works.
hilarious.
But Jack,
Yeah, so it's basically about
tell me,
him,
Jack,
and they're
when
trying
did you
to stop
first
him.
develop this theory?
Mandrake's trying to stop him too. He's an exchange officer
I
from.
first became aware of it.
The
Mandrake,
officer exchange program.
during the physical
He
act
knows,
of love.
like he caught on right away how nuts.
Yes,
He was there to
a
confront him.
profound
Because he
sense
calls
of
him, tells him to go
fatigue.
ready alert. This is a
feeling of emptiness.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, AJ.
Luckily, I was able to interpret these feelings correctly. Loss of essence.
Loss of
essence. And therefore
I
the
can assure you
communists
this
are
not
after our
occurred,
precious
Mandrake.
bodily fluid.
Women sense my power, and they seek the life essence.
This character is hilarious.
It's so crazy.
Yeah, he's so
But
crazy.
I do deny them my essence.
But everyone's playing it so straight. Like that's the thing.
He's not the
So
funny
that's the
part.
thing
The
about
funny
this
guy in the
movie.
scene is Peter Sellers to me. There, like it's more the British guy reacting to that general. I don't think the
Yeah, I
general's
agree.
kind of funny, but it's not that.
But
funny.
he's what makes the scene. He's not the funny part. You're right.
Yeah,
Just
he's the straight
reactions
guy,
of
I guess,
Mandrake. Because he's just getting more and more scared the whole time, Mandrake. He's just like, this is just getting worse and worse. And all of a sudden they start hearing gunfire and everything. This is like, Mandrake's like, oh my God. Anyway, so they're trying to stop him in the war room, figure out the president is. He's talking to the Russians. And he's talking to, well, first he talks to General Turgidson, who's a hilarious character. Turgidson is giving him like the reasons why this happened and how they could possibly stop him and if there's any potential to do that. And then they bring in Strangelove for the same reason. They're like, we need ways to stop this and what can go wrong. And he tells them about the doomsday machine that the Russians have that'll just basically wipe everybody out, including the Russians. And that's pretty much the plot. And the side plot is there's the bombers in the plane. It's a King Kong or Kong. They call him King Kong.
B-52.
They call him Kong. Yeah, the pilot. He's Kong. And James Earl Jones is in there. This is his first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool to see James Earl Jones just kind of like pop up in this movie out of nowhere. I'm just like, oh, there's somebody I know in this film. That's cool.
Yeah. Like the Major is the first real like eccentric character we meet, right? And I'm just watching the beginning of this movie, and I'm like, nobody acts. No officer would act like this on a bomber plane.
Okay, so
the thing is, he didn't know it was a comedy. He was told to play it straight.
Yeah, he had no idea it was comedy. And they hired him because he's not putting on a character. That's how he literally is.
He's a rodeo guy.
Yeah, he's literally just that character.
Okay, so they cast a clown.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know it was going to completely.
I just said they cast a clown to play like a soldier. That's why it feels a little weird. I'm like, this guy doesn't feel like a real major in the army at all, or the Air Force.
Sure, he does. He just seems like a Southerner, really.
No,
a little eccentric. A little eccentric.
A little.
Yeah.
No, way more than a little.
But
he's a cartoon. He's a cartoon character. Like he's not a real person.
He's the most cartoonish of them all, probably, and that's why he ends up being in that iconic image where he's riding the bomb like a rodeo bull.
Which is a total accident. Like I thought it was intentional. Like I've always seen that iconic imagery, and I'm like, oh, he must be doing that intentionally. Yeah. Like he's just like, let's do this, and then he's just like, nope, it's an accident. And he's like, well, fuck it. And I think that's what I appreciate about it more.
Yeah, so the general sends off 5 bombers, and eventually they realize they have to help the Russians shoot them down. And the Russians are able to shoot 4 of the bombers down, but the plane we've been following gets through, and they end up dropping the bomb, and setting off nuclear war, and it ends the world, and that's basically the plot. Yeah. But there are hilarious scenes in this. Do you have the scene with the president talking to Dmitri?
I believe I do. Give me just a moment here.
Funniest scene for me.
It's so good. Peter Sellers, I didn't even really know him as an actor, and he might be one of my favorite actors now, just from this, playing these 3 characters.
He's the Pink Panther, right? And all that.
He is the Pink Panther, and because of this movie, I added the Pink Panther to one of our later episodes.
Yeah.
I want to see more.
Remind me, what line was that again?
Well, he's like, Dimitri, he's
Dimitri,
like, if you're upset, think how I feel.
Yeah, think how I am. It's like, I can be upset
I can be upset like you, Dimitri. Please let me talk.
Dimitri, let me finish, Dimitri.
Yeah, and it's so different than how he plays it early when he's talking to the general. He's like, I thought I was the only one who had the authority to launch nuclear weapons.
He's very serious and commandy, with
the general Turgidson.
But the general's all excuses. He's just making excuses and
he's the one. I'm like, he's him and the major. I'm like, these guys are like clowns. These are not real.
The general's
people.
a clown. And here's another funny thing, Dave. George C. Scott, the character that plays Turgidson, he didn't know it was a comedy either, and he was just told to do a goofy take to break the ice each scene. And then Kubrick
just use that every time.
And they didn't tell him that, and then he got mad afterwards and said he'd never work with Kubrick again.
No, I could see why.
He was doing this crazy thing to get these performances that he wanted, and I noticed it right away. I'm like, why is this movie so wonderfully serious but wonderfully satirical at the same time? And it's because all these people are playing it straight.
Now then, Dimitri, you know how we've always talked about the possibility of something going wrong with the bomb. The bomb, Dimitri.
The bomb,
Bomb.
Dimitri.
The hydrogen
This
bomb.
is so funny.
Well, now, what happened is one of our base commanders, he had a sort of, well, he went a little funny in the head. You know, just a little funny. And
Just a little funny.
he went and did a silly thing. Well, I'll tell you what he did. He ordered his planes to attack your country.
So,
Well, let me finish, Dimitri.
is this the politics
Let me
of the
finish,
film?
Dimitri.
It's the only
Well,
thing
listen,
that's really
how do you
political.
think I feel about it?
And
Can
the
you imagine
proliferation
how
of
I feel
nuclear
about it,
weapons
Dimitri?
is the political.
But that's
Why
warfare.
do you think
That's
Hardly. That's more
Just to say
warfare, and they're
hello?
arguing about it and being like, "This is our R&D.
Of
No, this
course
is
I
our
like to
R&D."
speak to
this
you.
is more
Of
like
course I like
like
to say
international
hello.
politics.
Not
but
now, but anytime, Dimitri. I'm
and a
just
little bit when they're
calling
talking
to
about
tell you
commies.
something
Are you a
terrible
commie
has
and all
happened.
this stuff? But
It's a friendly
It's the
call.
time.
Of
It's
course
Cold
a
War
friendly
stuff.
call.
yeah,
It's Cold War politics.
But
I'm sorry too, Dimitri.
in comparison to the other two films,
I'm very sorry.
it has less
It's far
politics.
more
All right,
political
you're
than the
sorrier
next
than
one
I
we're
am.
going to talk about.
But I am
It is
sorry
not.
as well.
It
Hey,
is
Jaemeel.
objectively not more
I am
political
as
than the
sorry
next
as you
one.
are, Dimitri. Don't say that you're more sorry than I am, because I'm capable of being just as sorry as you are. So we're both sorry, all right? All right.
Well, everyone's sorry.
There are sounds of warfare while monologuing. What is this fucking movie?
No, that's really funny too. I just think
It is very funny.
when you're talking about politics, it was interesting just how you introduced the episode, Davan. How you're like, well, people in other rooms making decisions for us. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get a picture of how you view politics. And this movie, I think, is also an indication of it because even though you hadn't seen it,
I rightfully don't think highly of many politicians because I pay attention.
yeah. So I think you don't really. Are you like a libertarian or are you just like
No, I'm not like down with the system guy. I just think we could elect better people most of the time.
Well, they got to want to run too.
Well, that's the thing, and I don't think they would, and that's the problem. Like I have issues with the idea of politics in general and getting good people to run, or at least. Anyway, we could get into that.
Yeah, sure.
But like I vote, of course, and
yeah, it just you guys keep saying there's no politics in my movie. I'm like, did you watch my movie? Like, I know
I did watch your movie, but there was no.
We'll get to your movie.
All right,
Yeah.
I feel like we need to skip ahead because I'm like, you keep throwing this shade at me. Like, oh, there's no compared to the next movie.
Listen,
no politics.
Dave, I'm sort of with you because to be honest, there's not a lot of politics in this movie either. There's literally just two. No, there's just two
I don't love it for its
superpowers.
politics.
Yeah,
it's definitely a political movie because it's about vaguely, at least.
Yes, yeah, it is. But I think of movies from this era, and I think the Manchurian Candidate. Like, wouldn't the Manchurian Candidate be a more political?
Yeah,
movie?
the Manchurian would have been a more appropriate candidate for a movie. Yes, it would have been a more appropriate candidate.
We pick a theme, but that doesn't mean I try to pick the most political movie I can think of. What I want to do is have us have 3 movies that are very different that still have a vague similarity of.
And I think we accomplished that. But
we very much accomplished
that very well here, and that's what I was going for. So, I don't want you can focus on that and say that's a flaw in the movie, and that's fine. But I don't think that's what the movie's about. Trying to be overly political. I think it's just trying to be a funny satire that has a political underlining.
And it very much is that.
Very well, because again, it could be a comic book. Every scene is just like you could. It's like maybe it was storyboarded. I don't know, but it looks like a storyboard, and it's awesome. It's because it's just a few sets, like 3 sets in the whole movie, probably.
Yeah,
it's like the war room.
Ferguson's.
You fucking bully, you something, you silly guy! I'll kick you out of the more, eh? You war mustang for it.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
You can't fight here. It's a war room.
That was funny. That was a funny line. Can't fight in here. It's the war room.
Yeah.
So again, that president, one of my favorite president characters I've ever seen in a movie. He's fantastic.
I didn't know it was Peter
Sellers.
Sellers.
Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, no.
Do we have any clips of Strangelove?
Of Strangelove, we do actually have some clips of Strangelove, but yeah,
there
that's
he is.
all.
There's just 3 characters.
All one man.
I
I was
look so different than the other two. They all
and I
look so
appreciate
different, really.
appreciate the acting and the character chops that this guy has. It's just this is just my thing. I'm like the Strangelove character. The title of the movie is the weakest of these three characters, and like
Well,
and the
if
least
we have
funny.
If we have a clip of him, let's show it. And let's Is this Strangelove? No, this is.
well, this is sort of all one. This is more or less the end of the film, I guess you could say. You know, General Kong.
See,
You know,
there's old Kong
trying to fix the
See, I
bomb.
love this shot. I know it's not like anything great. It's just hilarious, though. I love that shot of the plane. And this is an iconic image there. Right there.
What about General Kong?
But you know, it's crazy and it's serious, but it's effective, man. Like it's hard to watch because he's just barreling towards the ground. And it just gets faster and faster.
Dude, it is. It is a little scary to think about.
Yeah, this movie is fantastic to me.
Mr. President.
And then you immediately cut to this.
The chance to preserve a nucleus of human specimens.
Someone nuclear.
It would be quite easy.
There, he's talking to himself here, which is funny.
At the bottom of some of our deeper mine shafts.
How long would you have to stay down there?
I would think that possibly 100 years.
You mean
Can't get it away from his alien hand.
actually stay down there for 100 years?
Basically, his hand is still a Nazi.
Nuclear reactors.
Mein Führer, he calls
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Nuclear reactors could provide power almost indefinitely. Greenhouses could maintain plant life. Animals could be bred and slaughtered.
I love this character.
A survey would have to be made of all
It's the worst
available
character.
mine sites in the country.
Oh my
It's not funny.
It's so funny.
So unfunny.
Is
It's all
ad
ad-lib.
character? He's fantastic.
Be provided.
And it's like it's right at the
Really?
end
It's
here where you're
ad-lib?
like, can we just get to the point?
Government and military men be included to foster.
All I could think about was Logan's Run when he's saying all this stuff.
And this is where I'm like, is this supposed to be funny?
I laughed
This is-
out loud. I laughed out
well,
loud.
I'm very happy for you, Davin, but this was not funny for me at all.
Oh my god, you don't find that a wacky?
No.
You know who else thought it was funny? Was the Russian guy in the back. He you could see him just go
He's about to
like crack a smile.
Yeah, right there. He's about
Witnessing
to.
genius here.
Yeah.
He's fighting his alien hand syndrome.
When they go down
Like,
into
even
the
that's a
mine,
hilarious
everyone would still be
concept.
alive. There would be no shocking memories, and the prevailing motion will be one of nostalgia for
God, I
those left
love it.
behind, combined with a spirit of bold curiosity for the adventure ahead.
We must not allow.
God, it still makes me laugh.
Sir, I have a plan. Monsieur, I can walk.
It can walk.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't like this ending.
Oh, it's a hilarious ending.
It's not.
It's the Armageddon.
I didn't laugh at all.
Well, it's not supposed to. This part's not supposed to be funny.
Yeah. I've got many movie
Because,
morsels
this
that
movie
might
goes back and
highlight
forth. It can be serious for a minute, and then it just gets ridiculously wacky. But still played straight. Anyway, so that was the plot. Like I say, Dr. Strangelove, based on Werner von Braun, who people may know is a Nazi who the Americans hired to do a lot of their space stuff, like early NASA and stuff like that. So they're playing off that too. That's a political thing too.
Yeah.
So there's you can find the politics here. It's certainly like about the powers of the military and the powers of like one person within the military. If you're looking for politics, you can't find it.
The war room.
It's better to just sit back and watch these amazing performances of these very strange characters and acted in this very odd way, and in a movie that's sort of directed in a very odd sort of Kubrick way.
Yeah.
Of all the Kubrick movies I've seen, this one's my favorite. I like it better than The Shining, A Clockwork Orange, 2001.
I would say Full Metal Jacket is ahead of this for me.
Full Metal Jacket, I like this better.
You like this better than Full Metal Jacket?
It's in his top 5 all time Murphy.
I
Like
think
this
it
is.
is. Maybe it's just recency bias, but at the moment, right now, I can't remember the last
He
time I
thinks
enjoyed
it's
a
one of the
movie
greatest
so much.
comedies and one of the greatest movies ever made.
Oh, I think
don't.
that's easily one of the best comedies I've ever seen. As far as being, I could watch this again and still laugh because it's just these characters.
I'm gonna say some shit that's gonna
It's not.
break you. I'm gonna say something that's gonna break you, Davan.
What's that?
1989's UHF by Weird Al Yankovic is a funnier movie than this.
We'll see. I don't find Weird Al funny. I don't find any of his songs funny.
He's funnier than this Doctor Strangelove character.
You really don't like the Doctor Strangelove character?
No, it's not funny.
Why not?
Because it's like it's just a wacky, weird voice like character. Like compared to his other two characters, who I think are very well crafted, the Strangelove character is just like this. I'm like, maybe
worst
the
German
Strangelove
accent
character
ever.
was added for the movie. The Strangelove character's not in the book.
Yeah, it's just like it just feels like it's inserted weirdly. It doesn't seem to fit. It doesn't really add anything to the story. And so
no, it adds a character to the movie.
Yeah, I just don't think they needed
no,
it.
it does. He has the knowledge of like the Doomsday Machine and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
well, they could have given that to
scientists.
they could have just given that to anybody, really. But like, it's
any scientist, but you might as well make that scientist a weird, memorable character.
Well, I guess if you're Kubrick,
an exposition guy, you know.
Yeah, like Kubrick definitely has his own style, and I appreciate it. Like aesthetically, like
he's hit or miss for me too.
Why do you think they chose to do this in black and white?
Probably because
I think it works.
It works okay. It's fine. I was like, they could have made this in color at this point, but they chose not to for whatever reason. For maybe it's just for the aesthetics.
Maybe it helped with the visuals. Yeah, maybe it helped with some of those.
Or the budget was maybe more easy to execute on a black and white. It's Kubrick's only black and white film, I believe. It's the title, the intro titles, like that font aesthetically was the other thing. I was like, I don't know if I like this, but it's also memorable and artistic.
The things we talk about here, the setting and aesthetic. What do you think, Murphy?
Well, to answer your question there, Dave, Stanley Kubrick chose to shoot Dr. Strangelove in black and white because he felt that it would help to create a more serious tone for the film, which is a satire of the Cold War. Additionally, black and white photography can help create a sense of timelessness and universality, which is fitting for a film that deals with themes that are still relevant today.
Okay, yeah, so he was a deliberate choice, and I think it's correct. I think you're right. It does create this more serious tone to it, especially some of those scenes with the general early on in the movie.
Yeah. Some of those scenes with the general were pretty hilarious. I think we have one.
Yeah, he was great.
I gotta stop doing this. I gotta step them up more for this. Sorry. I don't like this.
Are you launching it?
Hang on.
Yeah, so Turgidson, he was funny. But so yeah, I liked the set. I think it worked in black and white. I think it did make it seem more serious because I love that. I love how it's weirdly serious, even though it's a satire. And do I think when I say this is one of the best comedies I've ever seen, that it's the most laughs per minute upon first watch? No, but that's not what it's trying to be. It's just these long, serious monologues and then just surprising laughs.
It's unexpectedly funny and
very.
Yeah, here we go. Sorry about that. Here's some Turgidson.
There are one or two points I'd like to make, if I may.
Go ahead, I love that these are just his bullshit takes. Because he does them so well. He's such a good comedy actor accidentally.
Quickly being reduced to a very low order of probability.
2. In less than 15 minutes from now, the Ruskies will be making radar contact with the planes. 3. When they do, they are going to go absolutely ape, and they're going to strike back with everything they got. 4. If, prior to this time, we have done nothing further to suppress their retaliatory capabilities, we will suffer virtual annihilation.
Annihilation.
5. If, on the other hand,
see, I love this character too. I can't remember the last time I saw a movie that had so many memorable characters.
On all their airfields and missile bases, we'd stand a damn good chance of catching them with their pants down.
That's crazy. It's just like, well, now that we have to accidentally miss them once, let's just miss them every time.
Which is what the other general was hoping to do, right?
Exactly. Yep.
6.
It's well crafted plot.
that we undertook of this eventuality indicated that we would destroy 90% of their nuclear capabilities.
And
we
they
would
don't do
therefore
that. And then
prevail
he was
and
right
suffer only
because the whole
modest
world ends
and
up getting
acceptable
nuked.
civilian casualties from the remaining force, which would be badly damaged.
But in the middle of this, he takes like a call from his secretary, like that he's having an
It's
affair with.
hilarious. That's what's funny. His mistress.
Yeah,
You know
and
what?
she's like, "Baby, what are you doing?" You know?
He's like, "Fuck, you'll be home soon."
So the funny thing I found with George C. Scott in this role, because he really kills it. This
He
role was better
does.
than I thought it was going to be. Is
Me too.
the whole time I'm watching this, I couldn't help but think that it's John Barenthal.
From Walking Dead.
Yeah, the Punisher, Walking Dead. Yeah, he just the way he sort of like presents himself was very like the Punisher, John Green.
Interesting. Well, let's which scenes would you guys hold up? I think
For
we
me, it's
all
that
agree the president.
The president talking, Dimitri, please, like, yeah, let me finish.
This is a friendly call.
This is a friendly call. Yeah, we're friends. And like, I like how the ambassador's like, I think he's drunk. So you think he's
He's like,
talking
no,
to
Dimitri, I would call you just to say hi, but that's not what I'm doing this time.
yeah,
Dimitri.
yeah, like, and knowing it's like Peter Sellers now, it's even better, I think, because he's not even doing his own accent, right? He's doing an American accent.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's even better, I think, in the performance. So
again, yeah, go ahead.
And the scene also, I think, earlier in the movie where it's the secretary on the phone where she's talking to George C. Scott in the bathroom. I also thought like that was kind of
It's funny.
interesting.
That's like the opening scene almost.
Yeah.
Of the movie.
Yeah, it's one of them too. Most of the stuff with like, yeah, go ahead, guys. So, said my holdups.
I guess my scene that would probably hold up is George C. Scott sort of explaining the plane can make it, which is the scene.
If the pilot's good, see, I mean, if he's really sharp,
really good. The way he just like gets into it, and just geeks out.
A big plane like a 52, room, it's jet exhaust, frying chickens in the barnyard.
Yeah, but has he got a chance?
Has he got a
Has he got a chance? The sudden realization in his fucking brain.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
He's so excited because that good old American boy can do. Oh no. And it like the series of unfortunate events that this movie like entails is impressive and hilarious. I will admit.
There's a disclaimer at the front too, where it's like the U.S. Air Force has assured us this can never happen, or something like that.
Yeah, which again makes adds to the seriousness of it.
Yeah.
Instead of making you they're meaning to make that, or the military, if that's real. Do you guys think that's real, or they just added it?
My movie morsels are gonna blow your friggin'
Take
brain.
care of that. All right.
Added. Sorry, what do you mean added what?
Like
if
fear
it's
and
written part of the movie, like a fictional disclaimer, or if it was real.
Oh, if that, it's almost like, yeah, when like Michael Jackson put that like a disclaimer at the front of Thriller, and he's like, I'm not into the occult or the supernatural.
Yeah.
Like, did anyone ask you if you were? Like, it's like
exactly. Is that
yeah.
I think you guys mentioned all of my favorite scenes. I love the one, everything with the president and Turgidson, everything in that war room. Really, that's a lot of scenes.
I like
the intro.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I was just thinking about. I also like the scenes with the plane, like all the interiors of the plane. Like we kind of skipped over that. I found we were more focused on war rooms.
Why were there
like,
lipsticks and nylons in their survival kits? I couldn't.
I wanted to mention that where the music in those airplane scenes is phenomenal. Where it's just like soldiers humming "The Ants Go Marching."
Yes.
It's haunting. Like that's what adds the seriousness to this movie, because there'll be something wacky happening in the war room, and then they just cut to and them actually just reading off their like checklist in the plane to get the bomb ready and that sort of stuff.
1 issue of prophylactics, 3 lipsticks, 3 pair of nylon stockings. Shoot, a fella could have a pretty good weekend in Vegas with all that stuff.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't really get it. I didn't necessarily understand why it was all in their little packs. And
well, he was the only unserious character. Everyone else in that plane is playing it completely
super
serious. Yeah, he's playing that so straight, but like it just comes off.
And he is too. He's playing it straight, just as himself.
There was one other actor that played it pretty straight, and it was
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones is very serious in it.
Yeah, James Earl Jones was pretty awesome.
Operator, hold on. Try and keep him a second.
Oh, and this guy.
Man,
watch out for the Coca-Cola
I want you
company.
to shoot the lock off it. There may be some change in there.
This guy
That's private property.
That's
private
Can
property.
you possibly imagine what is going to happen to you, your frame, outlook, way of life, and everything, when they learn that you have obstructed a telephone call to the President of the United States? Can you imagine? Shoot it off! Shoot with a gun! That's what the bullets are for, you twit!
Shoot with a gun!
Okay. I'm gonna get your money for you. But if you don't get the President of the United States on that phone, you know what's gonna happen to you?
What?
You're gonna have to answer to the Coca-Cola company.
Gonna have to answer the Coca-Cola company. Now, okay, on the surface, that seems like a really kind of foolish and ridiculous scene. And I understand where you're coming from, Dave, where it's sort of like, why is this happening? It's so irritating. But you know what? That actually proved to be the most important scene in the entire film and had great ramifications for just how people in the government and military decided to handle things.
Yeah, like that scene's not even the one. Like I agree, it's kind of like I'm like, can you just get to it? But on the other hand, I know it's a satire, and I know they're trying to create these absurd moments, and for the most part, I think they're fine. I think it's just my own personal issues with this Strangelove character is like where it all falls apart for me, and it's the end of the movie, so I'm just like, ugh. So
he's not my favorite character in this movie by any means, but I think he is a funny character, and he's an interesting kind of little addition.
And I'm like, why does he have an alien arm? What's that about?
That's just funny
He's
because
a
that's
mad
the way of showing.
That's just something he cooked up for his character and to
Yes,
throw into this
exactly.
just to make it even wackier. It didn't need it,
Yeah.
I don't think, but
the alien hand gags were getting me. Every time he just like throws out the Nazi salute by like inadvertently.
to each their
like,
own.
No,
Yeah.
he's just,
Ralph,
like, trying to.
Ralph Garman's been doing like this like German character on like this other podcast called what he does with Kevin Smith, Hollywood Babylon, and he always does this German character. I'm like, oh, this is who he's doing. Now I get it.
Doing Strangelove.
He's doing Strangelove, yeah. He's like, maybe like take over the world.
The only other scene I would add, because they're actually quite tense, are the scenes with what is it, Mangrove,
Mandrake,
and Ripper, because they're tense. You actually feel tension for Mandrake because you're like, is Ripper just gonna kill him? And you don't want him to because you like Mandrake. He's actually kind of likable because he's gentlemanly and like witty, and so I found those scenes very tense.
He has a chance there to like actually get the general before he kills
realize
himself.
that fluoridation is the most monstrously conceived and dangerous communist plot we have ever had to face.
Too, just to this day.
You can play a dead game, soldier.
Yes. No fucks given.
Nice shooting, soldier.
Bullets just went around him.
Nice shooting, soldier. This character is fantastic. He's like the villain in a comedy satire.
Come over here and help me with this belt.
I haven't had very much experience, with those sort of machines, Jack. I only ever pressed a button in my old Spitfire.
Mandrake, in the name of Her Majesty and the Continental Congress, come here and feed me this belt, boy.
All right, I think here we may all pick the same thing, but which performance would you hold up? For me, it's Peter Sellers. Again, wasn't very familiar with him. One of the best performances ever. Those three characters for me, so good.
I think I gotta go.
George C. Scott as Turgidson is so good.
Yeah, I think I kind of gotta go with George Scott. Like Peter Sellers knocks it out of the park, and the fact that I didn't know it was him in all three roles until like the end of the movie it was evident enough that like he clearly knocked it out of the park. But to be fair, yeah, George C. Scott, he really kind of held that movie together with the energy, and yeah, even the flight crew, man, they were just like just solid performances. Yeah, it was overall a good movie.
There were a lot of them.
Yeah, for me, it's Peter Sellers too. Clearly, only 2 out of the 3, really. But even the
Still
two
two
that
out
I
of three
really
ain't
liked, worked well. The George C. Scott, the two generals, the Turgeson and the other one, and even like
Ripper.
the major and the plane. Like to me, these are like some of my least favorite characters in the movie because they're just so ridiculous. You know, like they don't feel like real people.
Tell me you don't see far more ridiculous characters in almost every comedy.
Like what? Like a Hot Shots or something like that, or
Yeah, it had a
for
bit of a hot
anything, any
shot. Yeah.
comedy. Most characters in comedies aren't nearly as believable as these characters.
Yeah, I guess it's like they're straddling this line
looking
between
for a serious movie, like because it is that sort of like.
Yeah, I think maybe that's part of what I'm struggling with in it too. Is like they go for like this strong believability, they go for like this playing it straight until it turns into this complete ridiculousness, and then you're just like, oh, it's very jarring, and it's like, and once they do it, I like once that president's like Dimitri, I'm like, I can't take this president seriously after this, you know, and I don't think I'm supposed to, but like it's.
I love that though, where they have that super serious and commanding scene with him, and then all of a sudden, yeah, Dimitri,
and he's just like this whitey like guy. You can't do that in the war room, you know. And he's just got all these little
fighting
things.
in the war room.
There's no fighting.
No fighting in the war room.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So yeah, like I just think like some of it works better for me than other parts of it, you know. But overall,
hit us with some morsels, Murphy.
Time for some morsels. You guys hungry? All right, let's do this.
Do it up.
All right.
Morsels theme.
Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Bomb from 1964. Peter Sellers was paid $1 million, 55% of the film's budget. Stanley Kubrick famously quipped, "I got 3 for the price of 6."
That's a good.
Was that a good deal, or was that not a good deal? You think at the time?
It's probably a lot of money back then.
I mean, that was
they wanted him to play 4 roles. They only
half the budget.
movie. I don't know if this is one of your morsels, Murphy, but they only greenlighted the movie. The studio wanted Peter Sellers to play 4 characters because he had just. That was the only reason, and they because he was supposed to play one of the other characters. Oh, he was supposed to play Kong as well.
Oh, yes, that is true. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he was supposed to, and they switched that out at the end because he had just done a movie with Kubrick, Lolita, where he plays like 4 characters or something.
Yeah.
That actually. So the studio, and that did very well. So the studio's like, all right, let's do that again. You can do your movie if Peter Sellers plays all the characters, basically.
Right, and then they brought in
Slim Pickens.
Slim Pickens for Major King Kong.
You don't really see that much anymore. Like people playing multiple roles in movies. It happens like when Eddie Murphy did it in like the 90s. It happens, but it's less common. Or maybe Peter Sellers is just a unique case, you know.
Well, one of the things about this podcast, I would argue that's because actors were better than they are now. But because that's kind of one of my theses.
There were fewer of them, so the ones that
they were well trained. A lot of them Shakespearean and that sort of thing first, and then, you know, but whereas now you can sort of just get thrown into things because you're famous from something else.
Like, and this is right before a lot of that was like when Hollywood changed, like especially, I guess they're into the era of the Elvis movies, and I guess the beginning of the pop stars starring in movies. But yeah, like maybe there was fewer actors. It's kind of like pro athletes when there was only 6 NHL teams. Like all the hockey players seemed a lot better.
The teams
right?
were good.
Yeah, all exactly. It wasn't very watered down.
It's a decent little Skelhorn snack to go with these movie morsels. We got the U.S. government dismissed Stanley Kubrick's scenario of an accidental nuclear war as too far-fetched. However, the scene where Group Captain Mandrake is trying to get through to the Pentagon with the code to recall the bombers, but doesn't have enough change for the payphone, was shown at a session of Congress. Members said it raised legitimate questions about whether crucial information could find its way to the right people during a nuclear crisis.
Well, it's kind of like when the Independence Day came out, and they're like, "Do we have a plan in case aliens invade?" And they're like, "It turns out we don't." So maybe we should make one. Yeah.
So in the early 1960s, the B-52 was cutting-edge technology. Access to it was a matter of national security. The Pentagon refused to lend any support to the film after they read the script. Set designers reconstructed the B-52's bomber's cockpit from a single photo that appeared in a British flying magazine. When some American Air Force personnel were invited to view the movie's B-52 cockpit, they said it was a perfect copy. Stanley Kubrick feared that Ken Adams' production design team had used illegal methods and could be investigated by the FBI.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
But this is the one part of this is where I was not clearly up on my history, but I was like, would they actually use B-52 bombers during this era? Because I always thought that nuclear missiles came out of like silos and submarines and other like launch sites like that. But
Well, no, Hiroshima and all that was done with bombs.
well, that's World War II. I mean, more like I guess like once the Cold War was like in the 1960s, this just struck me as like, oh, they were using B-52 bombers on the regular to like.
Well, I think that's part of it too, where like they didn't expect, like they put. I think somebody in command probably knew that Ripper was nuts, and they put him somewhere unimportant. So he might just have all these old bombers and stuff because they put him somewhere where that's not a threat, or something like that, where he wouldn't have the cutting edge technologies.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, like it just I was like, oh, I was like, I didn't know it came down to planes.
Might I offer another snack, Skelhorn snack?
Sure.
This movie was supposed to be released on the day JFK got shot, so its release got delayed.
So it would have been a year earlier. Or 6 months probably, because 63 is when.
No,
Kennedy...
they released it like the week after.
Wasn't Kennedy killed in 63?
The movie was released on January 29th, 1964.
Oh. Oh, so and Kennedy was killed in like November of 63. So.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Maybe that's what I read.
I check. Since we're
anyway.
We're citing.
I'll keep going on with these morsels.
Oh yes, no, it was supposed to have been released. Yeah, in 60.
November 22nd, 63. Yeah, so it was like 2 months later.
Yeah. Okay.
While shooting aerial footage over Greenland, the second unit camera crew accidentally filmed a secret U.S. military base. The plane was forced down, and the crew was suspected of being Soviet spies. Peter Sellers improvised most of his lines, and one of the most significant is in the final scene when Sellers, as Dr. Strangelove, exclaims, "Mein Führer, I can walk!" According to Kubrick,
That made me laugh so much.
According to Kubrick, Peter said he couldn't promise to do the same thing twice, and he couldn't do anything more than 3 times. So the day we did the sequence, I had 6 cameras lined up, and he came in, and no one knew what he was going to do, himself included.
Yeah,
that's so good. What a funny guy Peter Sellers is.
Jeez. Vera Lynn's climactic song, "We'll Meet Again, Don't Know How, Don't Know When,"
in this movie.
It's identified in Wikipedia's entry as one of the songs distributed in the BC's wartime broadcasting service with the intention of improving morale in the event of a nuclear exchange. The scene where General Turgensen trips and falls in the war room, which was actually one of my favorite scenes.
Me too.
Remember it?
I laughed.
Yeah, the scene where Turgensen trips and falls in the war room and then gets back up and resumes talking as if nothing happened really was an accident. Stanley Kubrick mistakenly thought that it was George C. Scott really in character, so he left it in the film. The 9th nuclear explosion shot in the end sequence is U.S. nuclear test Baker from Operations Crossroads. The first post-war nuclear test on the Bikini Atoll shot November 14th. Shot number 14 is Able from the scene Operation. Shot number 15 is Trinity, the first atomic explosion ever. I hope I explained that.
Yeah, it looked like a real footage in that part.
That's wonderful.
Getting on these final morsels here. The war room contains a large table of food because Stanley Kubrick intended to end the film with a custard pie fight between the Russians and the Americans. He decided not to use the footage because he found it too partial to fit the satirical nature of the rest of the film. The only known public showing of the pie fight scene was at the 1999 screening of the film in London's National Film Theatre.
I would rather had the pie fight instead of that Mein Führer stuff. I can walk.
What? Oh no, the pie fight would have been just hokey.
During the deleted pie fight scene, President Muffley took a pie in the face and fell down, prompting General Turgidson to cry, "Gentlemen, our gallant young president has just been struck down in his prime." Had not Stanley Kubrick already decided to cut the pie fight by the time President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, the line, or possibly the entire sequence, likely would have been cut due to its eerie similarity to real events.
Right.
So, like, oh, what a good line, but also, oh, what an eerie line. Towards the climax of the film, a Coca-Cola machine is shot to obtain coin change for a payphone. During much of the 1980s, Columbia Pictures, which released the film, was owned by the Coca-Cola company. And the scene where Major Kong rides the missile most likely was inspired by a similar scene in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen in 1943, where the title character rides a cannonball into a building, which I gotta find this and check it out.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Right?
It's way harder to film.
Cinematography by Gilbert Taylor, edited by Anthony Harvey, and music by Laurie Johnson. Release date was January 29th, 1964, with a running time of 94 minutes. This movie had a budget of $1.8 million, and at the box office made $9.2 million.
Not bad.
Did okay.
Turns a little profit there. All right, those are fine morsels with Murphy. All right, rewatchability, fellas. For me, yes, I am definitely. I swear to you guys, I'm not making this up. I had the urge to rewatch this movie the very next day.
I believe you. I will never watch this again. But it's been fun. It was a fun ride. So, thanks.
Murphy.
I would probably rewatch it again. Yeah, just to appreciate some of the characters a little more. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about the characters.
Yeah, like the only downfall I really had in the movie was just like the exterior plane scenes, and that's just a downfall of the time and technology. That's nothing like outside of Kubrick's control. I mean, I'm sure, yeah, the budget too. So it's just like, if that's the only bad thing I can really like conceive of, yeah, this movie has just got a bunch of rewatchability for me. It's pretty fun.
All right, so here's the question we all show up to ask and to answer: does it hold up? For me, my God, does it ever?
Wait, Dad, are you sure? You gotta think it over. Yeah.
No need to think it over anymore. I loved this movie. It just think about it. Those characters just makes me smile, and just watching them here, like for like the second or third time, because I watched a few clips before the show too. It didn't wear off. It's not like the B sharps where it gets less funny every time you see it.
Like for me, it's kind of yes, but it's also, I guess I have a caveat. Like it holds up fine as a film, and I think it's got its merits and it definitely had its entertainment. But under the theme, does it hold up as a political movie or a movie about politics?
That's not the question. That's not the question, actually.
Okay, well, my answer to that question, which you didn't ask, would be no. But I would say that it does hold up overall as a film. Yes.
No, the thematic part is just to tie a nice little bow on the movie choices, really, and to give us some discussion points, but similar discussion points.
Yeah, it's mostly just a direction to sort of like drive the episode in. It is the general question. It's like, does this movie hold up as its whole?
Yeah, we want to view these films just as films.
Okay.
So your answer is
taking into account what they are.
Yes, it holds up.
For example,
holds
like
up,
if you look at our A movies here, do I think Matinee is the best movie ever? Well, one of them maybe. It's great, but like, do I think House Party is the best movie I've ever seen? No, but as a party movie, well, maybe through a theme, but not like as it pertains to parties, but
because movies are like songs, right? And you might be in a mood. So you might be in a mood for a political movie, or you might be in a mood for a comedy, or maybe it's both. But
dark comedy,
or dark comedy. And so like this type of comedy, this type of movie is not for me. I don't enjoy it very much, and certainly not something I want to rewatch. But I don't hate it. I think it's got a message and it's kind of clever, but I also think it's kind of condescending, which we in our chat I compared it to.
I would like you to explain that. Actually,
well, I compared it to Don't Look Up.
Get that from it.
Which Don't Look Up was the
you
movie
just
that
don't
came
like a movie to tell you a message that you think is obvious or like
it's so
already
obvious, and it's so
the
like everyone is.
zeitgeist.
It's like it's an obvious message, and they're like everybody is dumb. See how
Well,
dumb these people are.
But I ask you this: what do you do when a message that's obvious and played out still isn't taking root and still isn't getting the attention it needs? Like, what do you do as an artist?
I don't know.
Example,
I don't know
when
if
you
it's
express
this,
yourself through
but
film?
maybe
But like,
so.
like I understand. I found Don't Look Up more condescending than this I just found funny. Like this was
This
all
is
those
better.
characters.
This is better than Don't
and
Look
like,
Up. But,
Don't Look Up is heavy-handed.
yeah. But I was getting that because I saw Don't Look Up before this. I was getting those vibes, and I was kind of reminded of that movie as I was watching it. And I was like, I don't like that part of the movie.
That's one of my complaints about modern movies is I find a great deal of them heavy-handed, and that's why I don't enjoy
over the
them as
top.
much. Oh, and just like I find modern creators or whatever it is in film, at least, I think their audience is dumb, or at least maybe that's where the producers and the studio steps in. I don't know, but it's like everything just seems a little more dumbed down and a little like hit you over the head. Whereas this, again, it plays it straight in spots, and the satire is a little more subtle and a little more wacky.
Yes, it's more subtle. I think it's more nuanced, and I think it's a better piece. It's a better piece of art than Don't Look Up.
It doesn't talk down to you in like the way a lot of modern movies I find. It's just it is trying to hit you with a message that you may find obvious, but I guess I don't see that as condescension.
That message is no fighting.
Because the characters aren't particularly competent. It's not like they're confronting.
Well, I think that's the part of it. I'm like, I think in the United States, like the guy who went crazy aside, I feel like the other ones are just like, I'm like, these guys went to officer school. They're not like just some good old boy they just got off off the street and they threw him into a plane.
Oh.
Like he would have had to have been like trained and disciplined and like have you met soldiers?
He
They
knew
don't
his
act like
business.
this.
When it was time to do the checklist, he had that all down. When it was
Yeah,
time to like give a speech to his boys,
He played that role seriously. Like
he was playing it
just when he
straight.
puts the cowboy hat on, I'm just like, what are you doing?
That's just him being him, I guess. He's a rodeo fellow.
So
I get it. Like it's just like he's a rodeo guy. He's not a pilot in the military, and that's obvious.
Yes,
I get that. So he just seems a little out of place in that.
Yeah, I'm like,
me,
he doesn't feel like he doesn't feel right for the role. I guess is what it's kind of. But I get why he
Peter
chose
Sellers would have played it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna get you two to wrap this up here. We gotta get this show
Yeah,
on. I'm gonna say yes. The movie holds up. I'll say my part. Yes, the movie holds up. It's a solid piece of filmmaking. It is one of probably Stanley Kubrick's better films, and is a classic film that should be witnessed by all. The ending is haunting. The characters are enthralling, and considering what it is for what it was at the time, it is a solid movie that definitely holds up and gets love from me.
Did you give it a yes with caveats, Dave?
I gave it a yes. Basically, it's a yes, but I don't want to see it again.
It's just not your cup of tea.
Yeah, I think it's a strong piece of art, and it's a good film. It's just not my style.
You enjoy the characters, like the ones you like.
The ones I liked, and some of them worked better for me than others. But I would rather watch Hot Shots than this.
You know what? I like Hot Shots.
Hot Shots is a fantastic film.
I don't think
Hard
it's
Shots
as good
Part
as
2.
this, but
Oh,
Hard
so
Shots
good.
Part 2 I like as well.
Coming in hot, Topper. Perfectly fine.
It makes me
There goes my wing.
very happy that I get to add Dr. Strangelove to the A-list.
Well, we got to give them one every now and then, folks.
Yeah.
Tell us in the comments what you think about.
I've come around
Strangelove.
since I watched it on Sunday, and I've come around over the last few days on this movie. So, like, very, compared to how I felt when it ended, because I was, like I mentioned, I was looking at it through this lens. I was looking at it through the lens of like, is this politics? It doesn't feel like politics. So, but,
well, let's move on to something that's apparently more political, shall
or
we?
not, depending on who you ask.
This one might get contested.
This might be democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep voting on what to have for dinner, and I feel like that's what we got to get into here. But let's.